The king of cocaine, also known to have an astonishing net worth of $30 billion by the time of his death, which is probably $64 billion by now, Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria is one of the wealthiest criminals in the history of mankind. The Medellin cartel, notorious worldwide for distributing cocaine, instigating gang wars, motor vehicle theft, and kidnapping for ransom, was run by none other than this crime lord. One of the biggest reasons behind Colombia being famous for the world's murder capital was the king of crack, Escobar. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Popular Criminals, your favorite YouTube channel. And today, we are going to talk about Pablo Escobar and the latest discoveries related to his case. So, without further ado, let's start the video. Born in 1949 in Rio Negro, Colombia, Escobar was the third among his 7 siblings, while his father was a farmer. He started his journey of crime by stealing gravestones and sanding them down, selling them again to local smugglers. His brother and son would have different claims regarding the start of his criminal life. Escobar was enrolled once in the Universidad Autónoma Latinoamérica of Medellin, but dropped out without a degree. Before entering the drug world, Escobar used to sell contraband cigarettes, fake lottery tickets, hold people for ransom, and was usually involved in vehicle theft. By the time when he was 26 years old, his bank deposit was about $3 million. The transition from an everyday kidnapper, vehicle theft, and minor criminal to the wealthiest criminal and the biggest drug lord in the history of Colombia took place at the start of 1975. Massive amounts of coca paste were purchased in Bolivia and Peru, and under Escobar's leadership, they ended up in America. By the mid of 1980, Escobar was included in the list of the 10 richest people on Earth by Forbes and had a jet only to fly his money. Can you imagine being so rich that you have a jet only for transporting your cash from one place to another? But then again, not everyone can be in control of more than 80% of the cocaine smuggled in and out of America. Due to Escobar's dealing, the cartel was earning $420 million every week. Besides being known as the king of crack, Escobar had a bit of a Robin Hood image. Among the people of Colombia, he was known to work on several projects for the less fortunate and was appreciated by a certain population for his social work. This gave him enough motivation to step into the world of politics. Even though he dreamt of being the president of Colombia, he landed as an alternate member of the Congress in 1982. But even then, just after 2 years, he was forced to resign. Just like any other normal human, he was mad that his dream had been ruined because of the interruption of someone else. So, he took it out on his enemies and whoever dared to lock horns with him. This is one of the major reasons why Escobar was responsible for the death of thousands of people, whether we're talking about politicians, civil servants, pedestrians, journalists, or even the relatives of his enemies. In 1989, a Colombian jetliner was also blown mid-air, and guess who was the mastermind behind it? A hint? It was the same man who claimed the lives of 3 Colombian presidential candidates and almost 1,000 police officers. That's right, it was all Pablo Escobar's doing. Enough about the bloodshed, drug cartels, and politics. Let's talk about another interesting side of Escobar that very few people happen to know about. In Western Colombia, he was the one known to build football fields, sports courts, and sponsoring children's teams. He was a huge fan of sports. Therefore, he sent a decent amount of money financing housing projects, building stadiums, and hosting sports-related events. Some people say that he did all that because he wanted to help the people of Colombia. On the other hand, it was also speculated that all these services were to win the likes of the Colombian people, so that whenever he needed it, he could use their residences as hideouts, or so that people could hide information related to him from the police, and other ways to use the people of Colombia as a shield between himself and the law. Before we move on in our story of the King of Crack, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on post notifications. You don't want to miss any updates, right? Yeah, that's what we thought. With that being said, let's get back. Escobar was so rich that he even offered to pay off the debt of his entire country on the condition that he would be exempted from any extradition treaty. Imagine being so rich that you're willing to pay the debt of your entire country. Other ways of Escobar to spend his money that might seem extremely shocking to you might include burning $2 million to keep his daughter warm, feeding $2.1 billion to rats, yes, actual rats. I'm not going to lie, if he gave us even a quarter of that money, we could have been filthy rich. But it's okay, rats need their food too. The king of crack was also the king of the jungle. How? Well, he owned a private zoo that contained almost 200 animals. Several elephants, zebras, ostriches, etc. were smuggled in his drug planes across the country. One of his most useful ways to deal with problems was plata o plomo. Plata means silver, and plomo means lead or bullets. We don't think any more elaboration is needed. In 1991, Escobar surrendered to the police on one condition, which was that he would be allowed to live in a self-made prison. Now, what kind of self-made prison would you expect a guy who fed $2 billion to rats every year? The least he could do for his self-made prison was to add a nightclub, a waterfall, a soccer field, along with several other luxuries that might seem jaw-dropping to you. After killing 2 members at La Catedral, the authorities gained enough conscience to move him to a less luxurious prison. But before they could do that, Escobar fled. It is not known whether he was shot by some officer or if he had committed suicide. Either way, the death of the greatest criminal in history occurred exactly 1 day after his birthday in Medellin. Authorities had discovered his hideout, and bloodshed leading to his death was his birthday gift. The drug lord got what he wanted. And what did he want? Once he had said that a grave in Colombia would be much better than a jail in the United States. And that's what happened. He died in Colombia instead of being held in the United States prison. That says a lot about his hatred for the country. So, that was the life history of the wealthiest criminal in the world. But the story of Pablo Escobar didn't end after his death either. The nephew of the deceased Colombian drug lord recently claimed to have found a plastic bag filled with money worth $18 million in the wall of one of the houses owned by Escobar. According to him, that wasn't the first time he found huge stashes of money in the house is owned by his uncle. This time, it wasn't only money. Nicholas also found a typewriter, a satellite phone, a gold pen, along with a camera with a film in it that hadn't been developed. He said that the bag containing the cash was rotten and smelled like something even worse than decaying meat. The nephew claimed that he had joined his uncle in several situations, including scarring scenes of violence. In an interview, Nicholas said that he once was kidnapped by people looking for his uncle and was tortured for 7 hours straight. As if that wasn't traumatizing enough, he witnessed the slaughtering of 2 of his workers with a chainsaw. Quite recently, the firstborn of the Colombian king of crack released his book. The author describes how the life of the greatest drug lord's son was like. From ridiculous luxuries and stupendous power to endless bloodshed and kidnappings, from witnessing the death of his teenage daughter to getting adopted by the MI6 agent Patrick Whitcomb, the book contains everything. Roberto Escobar, now known as Philip Whitcomb, mentions in his book, "I didn't know what money was. I just clicked my fingers and waiters came up and gave me my food. My father was extremely influential and had a stupendous amount of power. The president of Colombia gave me presents." While mentioning his privilege, he didn't forget to describe how bad the situation was for the poor families in Colombia. He mentions somewhere in the book, "I remember seeing this kid outside the supermarket with no legs, on a board that had wheels on it. My bodyguard told me that in poor families, they would cut off the legs of the eldest child so he could beg outside the shops to make money for the family. That's how violent it was." Alright folks, that was all for today's video. We talked about several aspects of the life of Pablo Escobar, the greatest and wealthiest drug lord in history. Several interesting facts like his private zoo, his earnings, the number of people he murdered, his astonishing Robin Hood side, the stashes of money found in the houses and apartments owned by him, along with his firstborn's latest book, were mentioned. Hope everyone liked this video. And make sure to drop your questions, suggestions, and requests in the comment section below. That's all for today's video. We will be back soon with another one. Until then, take care.